Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. This week we are smoking the Hiram and Solomon Traveling Man cigar.
But before we get to that, in case you don't know us, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And my name is Adam, and I am the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam mentioned, today we are finding the perfect pairing for this Hiram and Solomon Traveling Man cigar, which has a sweet looking label on it, actually. I just noticed it as I was reading it to you guys. That is really cool. All right.
Yeah, they're very creative with it for sure.
Yeah. And I do have to go through the trivia for today. So
let's do it.
this is one that we might end up doing the answer kind of in the middle because you'll understand why. But the question is, what is a cigar blend whiskey? What does that mean? How does the whiskey relate to the cigar? What's going on with that? And, it's not really an ABC type answer, but I'm curious because I had the wrong idea. The first cigar blend that I had, I actually had the complete wrong idea of what it was supposed to be. So,
Yeah, and I was luckily educated on this before, so I don't have to look like an idiot and take a guess right now.
Right. Right.
But I will say for those out there, just curious and thinking about it, it is definitely something that surprised me. I thought there was going to be, all I'll say is I thought there was going to be a lot more to it. That's all I'm going to say. That's it.
Absolutely. And if I would have guessed before I learned what it was, I would have been so horrendously wrong. So there's no shame in being wrong. Before I give the answer, I'll reveal what I originally thought it was, which when I say it out loud now is going to sound stupid, but at the time, that was just what I thought. So,
well, that's what we're here to do is educate, So
yep, absolutely.
There's definitely the guys, just so you know, the reason we do these, trivia questions is to try and find things that you may not know to help you out. So, if you're sitting here and you're new and you're like, man, I haven't gotten one of these trivia questions right, I must be like really stupid. So I'm definitely not going to go into a liquor store or a cigar lounge and start trying to talk. We're trying to find things that people don't usually know, that maybe misconceptions, all of that sort of stuff. So, you don't need to feel bad if you definitely don't know any of these answers.
Absolutely. And to tag on to that, I feel like, at least for me, a lot of times when I'm coming up with what the trivia question is going to be, the reason something sticks out in my mind is because it's something that I got wrong the first time. Those are the ones you remember are things that you got wrong. So
right.
There's no shame in it at all. You can, if you sound stupid because you say something, say, well, actually, Chris from Whiskey Noobs got this wrong the first time too.
Yeah, exactly. So getting into this cigar, I don't know if you've had this cigar before, Chris, but this cigar is very interesting. I'm very excited for you Perfect Pairing Club members out there to try this cigar because the tobacco in this cigar is not something that you're normally going to see. So the wrapper on it is a Sumatra Indonesian wrapper. So that is not typical. That's not something you're going to see very often in the cigar world. The binder is Indonesian solely. So that's also something you don't see very often. More common than a Sumatran Indonesian wrapper. But then the filler has a bunch of different stuff. A little bit of Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, from all over the place. You're talking. I believe it's 4 or 5 different fillers in there of different tobaccos. I don't have them listed right next to me, but it is a complex cigar, and it's one of those cigars out there. It's similar to the Don Doroteo Salt of the Earth that we had. If you are a cigar smoker and you feel like all of these cigars taste the same, this is a great cigar to try because you're going to go, this does not taste the same.
That's where I'm at right now. It's like, whoa, this is unique. Holy cow. There's a couple of overlaps. There's a couple of things that taste similar. They're kind of a tobacco, maybe like a real milk chocolate, not like a dark chocolate. But then there's something else that's obviously different, and I have no idea what it is. Wow.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that before we get into the first pairing, because this is a cigar that I think is worth getting into a little bit before you go ahead and start to mix your palate with the pairings if you haven't had this cigar before.
Definitely, definitely. Because like I'm having trouble getting a beat on it, and I want to know before I try pairing it with something. This is interesting.
Yeah, and it's a bigger cigar. This is a 6x60, so it's their Gran Toro size, sometimes called a Gordo. So it is a big cigar. So it's allowing a lot of room for those fillers to be complex, for them to really play with a bunch of different tobacco in the middle. Um, but you're still getting that heavy, obviously with the binder and the wrapper being Indonesian, you're getting that heavy Indonesian tobacco flavor, which not a lot of cigars have. So it's going to definitely be very different.
Yeah, big time different. Now to dive into that first pairing, so today we've got Green River's Wheated Bourbon. So we've had Green River's bourbon. I don't believe we've had Green River wheated yet, if I'm not mistaken. And
Mm-mm.
so Green River's normal bourbon has corn in it, and of course a little bit of barley for fermentation, and it has 21% rye, if I'm not mistaken. Their wheated that we have right now, they take that rye out and they put in 21% wheat, so it actually gives it pretty drastically different flavor profiles. You mentioned if you think all cigars taste the same, try this cigar. If you think all bourbons taste the same, I love what Green River did with their series, because you can take the Green River bourbon and put it next to the Green River wheated bourbon. Everything's the same except for the rye and the wheat, and they taste like totally different bourbons. It's like completely different. It's a great example for all bourbon not tasting the same.
I'm going to toss out a very whiskey noob comment here just to expose myself.
Do it.
I'm sure it makes sense because it's in the name, but I feel like I can actually like taste the wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really feel like I like if I was gonna go out there and eat some, just some wheat straight off the farm, like I feel like that's what this would taste like.
Yes, it's
And
kind of
that's,
like
I mean,
like a heavy bread flavor, like a little bit bready. Sometimes I say it reminds me of a crescent roll almost, is what it kind of the same kind of
yeah,
vibe that it gives me. And a lot of
especially on the
times
finish, yeah.
wheat. Yes, exactly. And a lot of times wheat is going to bring a sweetness. Some people say vanilla. In this one, I see it more as like a burnt sugar type of a sweetness, or like a brown sugar type of a sweetness. So, that being said, I am
Yeah,
going to puff this cigar.
just hit the cigar after taking two sips, and wow, that is drastically different. It's bringing it to something that's a lot more familiar to my palate. I can't like nail down like what cigar it is, but that changed quite dramatically, and I think it was the wheat that was doing it. Um, like very specifically, I feel like that bready flavor kind of came over, but I can't. It's almost. It's got some sweetness to it now, which is very interesting. And that definitely, I didn't get any sweetness on the first couple puffs of the cigar. So I'm intrigued to go back to this whiskey and see how it kind of plays.
Yeah, it's really strange now. It's almost okay, I'll be a cigar noob right now. This is reminding me of like the feeling of if I were to puff a really light cigar and a really dark cigar at the same time. Like it's like a hybrid of the two flavors a little bit.
Interesting. Interesting. This is one of those moments where I said it one time. I can't remember. I just was like rewatching the episode for fun or something like that. But I said one of the bourbons or whiskeys that we've had. I was like, yeah, it almost became like an Irish whiskey, and you were like, let me translate that for you, actual whiskey guys out there. So I'm gonna try and translate that for you, actual cigar guys out there. I would
Yes.
say where it's going is closer to, if I had to say a tobacco, it's like Corojo. It's like a Corojo cigar is where he's talking about, which has a little bit of that spice, a little bit of that oomph maybe behind it, but it's also a very mellow and smooth finish. Is that kind of sound right, Chris?
Absolutely. Yeah. Is the Camacho with the red label, that's Corojo, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't have all of their colors memorized, but I mean,
I
you like that one, right? So you probably
I
remember.
think it is. I think it is, and I could Google it real quick because that was what it was kind of reminding me of. I have the minis of those that come in the tin, and it was kind of reminding me of that.
Now, when I go back to the bourbon, though, for whatever reason, I'm getting like this pepper. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it's same thing. Okay, it
Totally.
it it kind of it's so weird. I feel like the wheated part of this bourbon came over to the cigar, and then the Indonesian part of that kind of like spice of that Indonesian wrapper and the Sumatra part of that wrapper too came over to the bourbon. So they like swapped like flavors almost and profiles. It's kind of very interesting.
I totally agree with you. Like you took the words straight out of my mouth. It was really weird. The cigar is kind of bready, kind of crescent rolly, and then the whiskey is like peppery now. It's really strange. And if you've ever had Green River Wheated, for those listening, it's like the opposite of a peppery bourbon. Like that doesn't happen. And it's super peppery now. Very intriguing.
That is now I'm really intrigued to see as we go along how this cigar starts playing with all of these other whiskeys here because if it plays like this, then this is going to be a very. I'm already thinking about like my rating at the end. I'm like, I have no idea. Like that is it's just so versatile and so unique in a good way. But you know, how does it compare to what we've had? Because it's so different. You know, that's so it's a challenge.
Yeah, one pattern that I think maybe I'm starting to get is if the cigar is going to change a lot, it'll do it for like all three whiskeys. Now, not all three changes will be good, but it seems if on the first pairing the cigar has a pretty drastic change, it'll probably have a drastic change later on. So I'm totally with you. We got some different flavor profiles today, so I'm really excited to to try the different cigars or the different whiskeys.
Speaking of which,
yes.
So Moonlight Mayhem.
Oh yeah, look at that label. I'm gonna put it on my side camera here in case we use it.
Yeah.
The label on this cigar or on this whiskey, sorry, dude. their labels are what drew me to Filmland. So I met them at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival actually, and they just have these sweet labels. Every whiskey that they do, they put together like a fake movie for it. So this one is Moonlight Mayhem. It's like a fake movie about a werewolf dating a human and all this stuff happens. And they actually put storyboards on their website. So that is why it looks the way that it does. Now, aside from the label, aside from the looks, what are we drinking? So this is a bourbon. This is barrel proof, if I'm not mistaken. That's why they call it extended cut. 57% alcohol by volume. And it is... it's got a lot of pop to it. So it's kind of the opposite of that Green River Wheated. It's going to have a lot of pop, so it could do totally different things with the cigar.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be very interesting. I was excited about this. I've heard great things about Filmland. I was excited that, you know, we got to try them out. And then when it came in and I tried it out, I was like, ooh, this is going to hit well with a cigar. And I'm so happy that you chose to pick this pairing with this cigar because I think it's just going to be a great experiment. Like if I could pick, if I would have picked, so Chris picks the pairings just so everybody knows. I pick out the cigar and then Chris says, here's the pairings with the cigar. If I could have picked a pairing that out of all these behind me that I wanted to try, I would have definitely picked this one. So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, totally agree. Because the cigar's got so much uniqueness. The bourbon has so much uniqueness. It's oaky, but it's also got like a bright fruit to it. It's got a little bit of pepper. Very complex cigar with very complex bourbon. So I can't wait to see what happens. And judging by your face, it's going to be awesome.
That was interesting. Now, this is a high proof bourbon, right? You may have been saying it. Or you may have brought it up. Yeah, 114. That definitely... I'm intrigued to go back to the cigar because I think the pepperiness and kind of I feel like when I want to be clear too when I talk about the Indonesian wrapper. Obviously, it's a Sumatra Indonesian wrapper, so that's a hybrid of sorts, and it's a very very creative tobacco leaf. But I feel like I want to be clear that it's peppery, but it is definitely more along of just like your baking spices or your cooking spices, I should say. Like it's kind of like a bunch of spices in one. I wouldn't say it's like kind of like your steak seasoning, but maybe similar to something you would put on I'm trying to think like a pork tenderloin, maybe like something like that, which is very specific. But I'm trying to just help those people out there that may not be in the Perfect Pairing Club. Which if you're not, I don't know why you're not. You would be able to smoke these cigars with us. But yeah, it's something that is, it's just so complex, and it's
Hmm.
whenever you bite into any, maybe it's a chicken, maybe it's fish, maybe it's something, and you're just like, man, there's a lot going on there in terms of the spices and the way they breaded it or something like that. That's what you experience with this cigar.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with that. Like, it's not like a steak seasoning where it's real peppery. It's almost more like a barbecue type seasoning, like not barbecue sauce, but seasoning you'd use for barbecuing something, where it's
Yeah.
a little sweet, a little spicy. It's got like a weird complexity going on. Now, puffing the cigar and going straight to the bourbon. Super interesting pairing. I am
Hmm.
hooked. Um, this bourbon, this is a straight bourbon whiskey. I don't believe it's Kentucky straight, if I'm not mistaken, but it is a straight bourbon whiskey. It it shouldn't have anything too crazy going on with the flavor profile. It should be pretty normal. It tasted like a finished bourbon after I hit the cigar. I smoked the cigar a few puffs, went straight to the bourbon, and the fruitiness that was already there a little bit is just highly elevated. Like, if this is, I don't know if this is complimentary or antagonistic yet, but whichever it is, it's highly that, because the fruitiness came to the forefront entirely. Now, that being said, both of them I noticed, it's similar. I forget what the pairing was that we did, but it's the type where they interact heavily and they stop interacting pretty quickly. So like second, third
Yes.
sip, it went back to just being the bourbon. Second, third puff, it went back to just being the cigar. Super weird.
That is really weird. I was glad that you kind of went on a talking, rant there a little bit, because I was like
Hmm.
I was like going back and forth, because I was like, I need to figure this out, because I was like talking, and then I would take a puff, and then I was talking, and then I would take another one, and I'd be like, wait, what? And then I was talking, I'd take a sip, and then a puff. Like I was just like, wait, is something happening here? Is nothing happening here? Because if you take too long, and it's weird, how quickly it just falls off your palate. But I think it's
Hmm.
because they are both so bold
Hmm.
that they will dominate your palate. I think that's what's happening with both of these. I definitely think this Filmland is a dominant, um, bourbon that's really going to sit heavily on your palate. It's going to be something that is interesting as we move along to this third pairing. I think the third pairing is going to be able to stand on its own as well. But yeah, I definitely 100% agree with the fruitiness. Now that I've been able to go back and forth a little bit, I would say the whiskey here to the cigar, it's making that cigar, all of those spices are kind of being mellowed, and then it's a
Hmm.
nice, smooth, easy, fruity flavor. Not like fruity like, like you're eating some Gushers or a Jolly Rancher, but fruity like just like a little pleasant aftertaste of just a little, it's hard to describe. Like, I guess like what you would, if you ate a bunch of grapes and you waited like 10 minutes, that taste that would be in your mouth, that's like what we're getting right here.
All right,
Um,
I'm going to try to be really specific, and I want to see if you agree with me on like that
okay.
weird fruitiness. Okay, Fig Newton. That's what it reminds me of. It's got that little bit of breadiness and then like that delayed fruity, right?
Oh my gosh. I gotta say, that was impressive. You nailed that. That is a very specific flavor. A Fig Newton is a very specific flavor.
It is.
And I would say maybe it's a little bit more fruity. I don't know if Fig Newtons have like multiple flavors, but like a grape Fig Newton.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that, I haven't had a Fig Newton in like 10 years, but you brought me back real quick. And
Right.
that definitely hit. That is a super interesting flavor. But I would say overall, this pairing, beautiful. I love, it's one of those where it's going to be really fun as you go along. You're going to be able to sip the bourbon and enjoy it, puff on the cigar and enjoy it. If you go back and forth a little bit, or if you take one, take a little time between both, you're going to really have a great pairing experience with this. Like, it's if you're just sitting out by yourself and enjoying, the beautiful summertime that's coming up, this is one that you're going to really just have a great time pairing.
100%. And like it almost leaves you wanting more because they start to fade off. So you just kind of keep going back and forth. We always say some of these are like really playful. This is a playful one. Like they're interacting in a really fun way. And to your point about the grapes, 100%, and it translates over to the whiskey a little bit, which is why it kind of tastes like a finished bourbon. It kind of tastes like a wine finish, like a port or a Pinot Noir finish, where it has that little bit of grapiness, and then you go over to the cigar, and it's there. It's a really interesting interaction. I don't even know if I think there was already some fruitiness in the bourbon, but it's almost like it's ultra, because I didn't get that from the cigar at all. Like that wasn't there, that type of grape flavor for me.
That's fair. Yeah. I would say it could be pretty close to an ultra pairing here. I mean that which for everybody out there, in case we haven't gone over this in a while, the ultra pairing is where you experience a flavor by both, pairing them both together that you didn't get out of either of them. So that's why Chris was mentioning, it may be ultra, because we were getting a little fruitiness out of the Filmland already, but not too much out of the Hiram and Solomon Traveling Man here. So there could have been a play where that fruitiness, I think it's hidden, is what I'll say, which is why I think I'm a little bit more on the ultra side here than a complimentary, because I think it's hidden a lot in this Filmland here. So I think it is more of an ultra than a complimentary pairing, because the fruitiness is definitely not in the Traveling Man. Maybe a little bit on the very end, but that's what I think makes it both ultra.
Yep, I'm totally with you there. And they exist kind of on a spectrum. So this is right on that spectrum between complimentary and ultra, because both of them are definitely changing, but that flavor was pretty hidden. It wasn't really there before we put them together.
100%. I'm excited to dive into this third one, though, because this is one that we just got in. We both just got this one in, and we both are very intrigued by this flavor. So I'm excited.
Yes. So this next pairing that we've got is Copper and Cask's Cigar Blend Whiskey. Thus the reason for the trivia. And it's one of the funkiest whiskeys I've tried in a while. Not funky like your wild turkey funk, if the whiskey listeners, the whiskey drinkers listening know what I'm talking about. Funky just in terms of unique, just real strange, and I can't wait to see how that goes with a cigar, because it's so strange. We've had really good luck with strange whiskeys and cigars, so
yes, we have.
This is going to be very interesting.
The interesting twist here is this is finished in Armagnac and port casks. That is an interesting twist to a whiskey that I think is probably what's going on, where I'm super excited because we talked about that port. We talked about a little bit of that fruitiness in the cigar, and I'm intrigued to see if it comes out here. But even the Armagnac, that's going to bring out a little bit of that fruity flavor as well, and that sweetness. So this one is the one that I was probably equally as excited with the Filmland here on this one.
Yeah, definitely. Another twist, too, it's not technically labeled as a Canadian whiskey from anything that I can see, but this is distilled in Canada. So this is distilled, my assumption is, as a Canadian whiskey would be distilled, which we have not had on the podcast yet. And it has an interesting flavor that I get from Canadian whiskeys, that it gives this like white sugary flavor, and then you add in that Armagnac and that port finish, and it's just a really strange flavor. So I'm interested to see how they interact.
It has a huge kick on the front. It definitely kind of hits you in the chest in the front, but it finishes very, very beautifully. I think it hits kind of the back of the palate where the sweetness is, and you can feel like yourself start to salivate a lot, and because it's got that fruitiness on the back end, and I'm very intrigued. Especially, I just saw a little sneak peek in your face there, so I feel like it's going to be very interesting when I go to the cigar. So I'm excited.
Yeah, interesting to say the least. And you're totally right about it really making you salivate a little bit. That's the other thing about this. It is 59.9% alcohol by volume. Oh, and to be clear, this is their small batch series batch number 2 from Copper and Cask. Yeah, 59.9% alcohol by volume. This is a heavy hitter, and at least for me, I took a sip of it, got that huge pop of the flavor, started puffing the cigar, and I got that salivation that you were talking about. Like my salivary glands really started to kick in. Wild wild interaction.
Ooh, that you get like you get to it's super interesting. I almost feel like I haven't gone from the cigar to the whiskey yet. But
Hmm.
when you go from the whiskey to the cigar, I feel like there's this transition of, you taste the whiskey, it's heavy hitter, and then you get the sweetness, and then you go to the cigar, and I feel like it transfers like immediately the same way. You puff on the
Hmm.
cigar, you get a little bit of a hit, it's kind of that kind of full-bodied, even like strong cigar hit, which this is, I would say this is probably a 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. It's a medium to full-bodied cigar, but you get that kind of hit like it's a really strong cigar, and then it mellows out too. So it's a very like I feel like what it did to the cigar is it made that cigar exactly like the whiskey in terms of the experience. Right when you take a sip, right when you take a puff, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest here. I'm gonna eat a little bit of crow. I was hesitant about this. Just having the whiskey, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna pair. Canadian for me, not the greatest. I fully endorse this as a cigar blend. This is working so nicely. It's like you said, those flavors carry over
I
to the
lost you.
cigar.
I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
I had you read on this.
Okay. All right. We can cut it out. I'll start back at, I need to eat crow here,
Sure,
basically. I'll just
sure.
start
Yeah,
my
yeah.
whole monologue. So I need to eat crow a little bit here because I was hesitant about this as a cigar blend. I mean, I knew it was really funky and I don't know too much about pairing yet. So I was like, I feel like this might be too funky. This is going to be strange. I fully enjoy this as a cigar blend. This interacts with the cigar so much more than most whiskeys that I've had so far, where it's like you mentioned, its flavors are being almost transferred to the cigar and kind of incorporated. It's almost just like an extreme complementary pairing. They're interacting so heavily with each other in a very unique way.
Super unique way. I think when it comes to going, now that I've had the opportunity to go from cigar to the whiskey, it is incredibly interesting because the cigar is doing almost the same thing to the whiskey. But I think the fruity flavors, that port cast, that Armagnac is really coming out of the whiskey now. I think, again, on the front, you're getting that Canadian whiskey style flavor, a little bit of a kick because it's just 120 proof. It's not going to be something that's not going to have a kick. I think it's the same thing with the Sumatra wrapper. You're never not going to have a little kick in there, but then it goes straight back into a very, very simple, easy, smooth, like just fruitiness. I think, and I'm so shocked. I've had this cigar plenty of times. I'm so shocked that this cigar is playing like that with these bourbons and whiskeys. Like I did not see that coming. I thought this was going to be one of those heavy hitter, heavy hitter, heavy hitter, heavy hitter, and they were just really going to play at an elevated scale and just stay on that level of, yeah, these are both heavy hitters, but they're really, if you're in the mood for a heavy hit, this is it. Like it's not doing that. They're doing it on the forefront. I think most of them, maybe not the Green River. The Green River, I think, is
Hmm.
where the cigar got a little downplayed, but overall, you get that heavy hit, but then it's just a smooth ride right after that heavy hit.
Yeah, yeah. And this copper and cask specifically is reminding me, not the flavor, it doesn't taste like this at all, but the feeling of when you're eating like either something like salt and vinegar chips or like Takis, where it starts to make you salivate and you almost just kind of keep wanting that hit of like, this is making me like salivate and it's making my jaws tingle. It's got that interaction to it. It's
Definitely.
like, it's got me hooked, man. I'm not going to lie.
It is very interesting. I don't know if it's the combination of two heavy whiskeys here, that we've done in a row, but I'm definitely feeling a little tingling in the back of my mouth. I don't know if you meant that like literally, but I definitely am feeling like right in the back of my mouth, like a little tingling sensation, and I have not had that in any pairing, in any podcast that we've had so far. Like that is a very interesting thing, and I'm like, why is that happening? It's probably because of the strength of the cigar and the strength of the the whiskeys that we're having, and they're really just, you know, there's a lot going on in our mouths, so it's like it's just buzzing.
Right. If I had to guess, that's like exactly what it is. It's like we're drooling so much from these extreme flavors that it's leaving like a tingle in the back of your mouth. And yeah, I think this Hiram and Solomon is like so playful with the whiskeys that it leaves me, especially as somebody who drinks the whiskeys, it leaves me wanting more. Like I want to try it again. I'm like, oh, I want to nail down what that flavor is. It's almost just with especially the Copper and Cask and the Moonlight Mayhem. It's leaving me like I can't figure this out. Like it's so complex that I'm still trying to figure it out. And
Always
that is
leaves you want more.
exactly. And for me, that's the best kind of pairing. It's like I could sit here for 2 hours with my phone on airplane mode and try to figure these out. That's how it is.
Yep, 100%. I'm moving back through here. It is really that Copper and Cask and that Midnight Mayhem are or Moonlight Mayhem, sorry, are just neck and neck. They're so similar in their kick, and they're so similar with kind of the finish. It's a very interesting pairing. That Green River, for me, is hard to place it between the two, you know, above or below or in between. It's hard to place it because it's so different to how the other two are interacting with the cigar. It's this is one of those pairings where it's like, guys, it depends on your palate, depends on the day, depends on the time. Like these I think all three of these have been good pairings. I think, you know, so you nailed it, Chris. Good job.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's one of those where you just, like you said, you just want to keep going. You just want to keep going, keep experimenting, and just, you know, go through the entire row of these bottles behind me and just see what happens and then pass out.
Yeah, right. No, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think the Green River, the best way for me to describe it, the Green River pairing with the cigar is like the ultimate mellow, low and slow pairing. Like the Green River's pretty mellow. It picks up a little bit of pepper. The cigar gets a bready sweetness. It's a really good, just kind of beginner. I don't even want to say beginner because it's still complex, but just mellow, approachable. Approachable is the word I'm looking for.
Approachable is a great word. Great word. That Green River and this Traveling Man from Hiram and Solomon is a great approachable pairing. 100%.
Absolutely. They both get enough pop to be interesting, but they stay mellow enough they don't scare you away. And it's approachable. It's really great. Then when you move on to the other two, that's where you're getting more into like you're leaving potato chips and you're going to salt and vinegar chips. You're getting the tingle, you're getting the salivation. And it really, like you said, it depends on what you're looking for in your pairing. I would not pick, I'm loving the Copper and Cask and the Moonlight Mayhem. I would not pick those if I just wanted to kind of chill out and have a mellow pairing. But I wouldn't pick the Green River.
Tuesday after work, and you're just looking to wind down.
Yes.
You're not looking to, you know, like it's not a Saturday or a Friday night, and you know you're out with the guys and you're just whatever, or even by yourself, like watching a game. That's more this Green River is more of a Tuesday after work. Work day was pretty good. I'm just kind of moving right along into the night.
Yes, exactly. But if I'm like hanging out, we're having a conversation, maybe we're playing cards, I'm getting out one of these higher octane ones, and it's just interesting. It's just so interesting. We've really hit, this might be the first setup where with our trifecta, we've hit two very different good types of pairings, where you've got a very good mellow, relaxed pairing and a very good high octane, full throttle. Not in terms of like harshness, I want to be clear. High octane in terms of the complexity, the way they're interacting. It's like it's an intriguing type of pairing. Two very different pairings for different situations.
I would 100% agree with you. Now for the hard part. I think we just got to dive in. I think
I'm stalling.
I have been stalling too. I'm stalling too because these rankings and the ratings, this is going to be really, really difficult. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, guys. I recommend all of these 100%. None of these am I going to say to either a beginner or a aficionado in either the bourbon or the whiskey, or sorry, the whiskey or the cigar. I would say all of these are recommended for every level. Um, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and go through my rankings. Rankings here, I've got at number 3, and this is a high. This is one of those ones where I'm gonna like say like, guys, this got the bronze medal. It didn't come in last. It got 3rd place, which is like hard to get, right? This is a bronze medal. It medaled in the Olympics. Like we're sitting here like this did a good job. I'm gonna give the Green River Wheated Bourbon my number 3, just because for me I think it wasn't where I wanted to go right now. Like that it's like we're recording this, so everybody knows we're recording this on a Saturday. It just wasn't where like my mind was at right now. It's a very simple one on a Tuesday. I'm probably literally like this week I'll probably have this cigar again, and I'll probably have this pairing again during the week. At number 2, I'm gonna go the Moonlight Mayhem. Very, 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 again, very close. I actually switched a couple times here at the end. That's how close all of these are. I was gonna have the Green River second, but I really, really like the finish on this Moonlight Mayhem. What it did to the cigar, I just love a complex cigar. I'm as a cigar guy, the number one thing I hate, and if you guys have been listening for a while now, I hate a cigar where I say I've had this before. This cigar is something I could say name 5 other cigars that taste just like this, and what that pairing did is it brought this cigar to just this place where it lives on its own. So that's why I have Moonlight Mayhem at 2, and the Copper and Cask for me is at 1. The playfulness of the cigar and the whiskey, oh my, like that is one where if it wasn't basically 120 proof, I would be able to play with it all day.
Yes. I'm going to agree with you here. So before I do my rankings, I do want to say, and I love it when this happens, this was one of those where we kept going through it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be, maybe this might be number 1. Oh, I think this is number 1. No, wait, I think this is number 1. And then I thought, that Green River must just not be on the same level as these. And then I went back to the Green River, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are all killer pairings. So I'm going to agree with your rankings. I'm going to put Green River at 3, Moonlight Mayhem at 2, and Copper and Cask at 1. Here's what I'll say, and I'll do my ratings. I definitively, I don't even have to think about this. The ratings for these are Green River 8.7, Moonlight Mayhem 8.8, Copper and Cask 8.9. And the only reason these aren't going to 9 is because 9 would mean I don't think there's any better pairing. And this cigar has proven to me, oh, this is going to be the best pairing. Oh, wait, no, this is going to be the best pairing. No, this is going to be the best pairing. I'm convinced there's something out there that would just be phenomenal with this cigar.
That's hilarious that you did that, because I already had it set before, once I decided I was doing the ratings in my head, and then I was like, well, that's how the rankings are going to go. I had 8.6 Green River, 8.7 Moonlight Mayhem, and 8.8 on the, so I was literally the same thing, Copper and Cask. The only reason I didn't go 8.9 and do the same level that you did is because I'm like, there's so much unknown here. Like, there's got to be a one that's going to be like this Copper and Cask, but it's going to be like a little elevated, but it's not going to be a 9 level. So I left my 8.9 available for the future, just in case it's not a 9. And I left that wiggle room. So, I mean, guys, take those ratings very, very lightly. All you need to know is have these pairings. That's all you need to know.
If you have any of these options at your disposal, you will be not just happy, like you will be thrilled. Like these are great pairings. And I think that speaks to this cigar. This is my first time having it, and I am loving it. Like I might legit go buy a few more of these and do more pairings. If you've seen my videos, you know how many whiskeys I have, and I'm like, I need to try more with this. I need to.
100%. And in case you guys didn't have the opportunity to try this cigar, you guys gotta get into the Perfect Pairing Club so you can smoke these cigars and try them with whiskeys or different pairings that you may have. Every single time we are in the Perfect Pairing Club Cigar of the Week, having that cigar each week with on this podcast. So you guys will be able to smoke the same cigar with whatever pairings you guys have. And as a part of a gift from Chris and I in the Perfect Pairing Club, you go to shopdreamercigars.com and you go through and you sign up for the Perfect Pairing Club. If you enter the code PPP, Perfect Pairing Podcast, 10, PPP10, all caps, you'll get 10% off your entire subscription. It's only $30 a month. You're going to get 4 to 5 cigars every single month. It comes out to, in a year, like less than $7 per cigar. We've got crazy giveaways. We've given away already TVs. We've given away giant humidors. We've given away little indoor fire pits. We've given away a lot of different stuff. So make sure you join the Perfect Pairing Club. Use that code PPP10 and you'll get 10% off each and every month.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, just to be clear, you know, if you guys haven't caught on, I handle a lot of the whiskey side of things. Adam handles a lot of the cigar side of things. So, you know, I don't, when I came into this, I don't really have a reason to say this, but this is the truth. When I came into this, I was like, that's a pretty great deal. The $30 for the cigars. And I know that sounds like an ad, so I'm sorry that it does. But that's just my truthful opinion, is like, that's a great deal. If I was getting into cigars, you get to try some seriously unique ones. So I'll quit. I'll quit our plug, but it's impressive.
So to finish off the plug, all I'll say is, in a calendar year, guys, you are never going to have the same cigar in a pack. So you're in a year, you're trying 50. So there's 52 weeks in a year. You're trying 52 different cigars every single year. So, I mean, you're talking about in 2 years, you've tried 100 different cigars. You're going to be a master at what you love and what you know, and you're going to be able to talk just so intelligently. If you're coming from, you know, if you're a cigar beginner, you're a whiskey beginner, or whatever it is, you're going to be able to really experience and have a lot of different things and have a lot of knowledge around a lot of different areas. And that's why we did this. Is it's really an educational podcast around just helping you guys get into the whiskey world, get into the cigar world, and figure out what you love. So that's the end of the plug, guys. Thank you for listening or watching if you're here on YouTube or Rumble. Thank you so much for tuning in. Chris, man, this was fantastic. I think I'm going to go ahead and sip the rest of these. I know what you're about to do. I forgot you're going to have to hit the question of the week. So go ahead and answer that trivia of the week while I enjoy the cigar.
I can't just leave them on the edge of their seat with that. So, what is a cigar blend whiskey? In order to make it very clear that there's no such thing as a whiskey expert who should just be snooty, okay, I'm going to tell you what I originally thought a cigar blend whiskey was. I thought a cigar blend whiskey was a whiskey that was blended to have notes similar to a cigar, like tobacco notes, leather notes, a little bit of smoky. That was my assumption. And I don't think that's too stupid. But what it actually is, a cigar blend whiskey is as simple as the blender is putting together a whiskey that they think is going to go well with a cigar. They make it so that it pairs nicely with cigars. And at least so, this is our first cigar blend. I'm a believer. Like that was excellent. It worked.
Props to Copper and Cask on that one.
Big props, because it worked excellently. So that's what a cigar blend whiskey is. If you see them, you can try them. And, of course, try them with a couple different cigars. Maybe we got lucky and this cigar goes really nicely with it. But a lot of times the blender probably has something in mind, especially if they like cigars. So if they have a Connecticut in mind and you're smoking a Corojo, you might not see it. Try a couple different ones. But at least with this one, we hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is working excellently with the cigar.
100%. 100%. Props to Copper and Cask on that one, guys. If you have any different pairings that you found with this cigar that you loved, if you're in the Perfect Pairing Club or you just found this cigar because you listened to the podcast, definitely let us know in the comments. Also, hit up the Discord of the Perfect Pairing podcast so you can talk about all these different whiskeys. A lot of people are in there talking about what they're trying with these cigars, what they're experiencing, what they're loving, what they're not liking. So you can obviously, Chris and I can't go through 20 different whiskeys, different pairings in this podcast, but you guys can help us out, help people figure out what different pairings are with this. So hop in the Discord. Chris, I'm going to go ahead and pop probably back through all of these pairings. So cheers, man.
Cheers. I'll see you on the next one.